Think about the last time you stood in front of your microwave, watching the plate spin, waiting for that familiar beep. Like more than 2 billion people across the globe, you likely assume that as long as the steam was rising and the food was piping hot, it was safe to consume. We have been conditioned to believe that heat is a universal purifier. We think of it as a reset button that kills bacteria and makes yesterday's meal as good as new. But what if I told you that for certain foods, that second round of heat is not a purifier, but a catalyst? What if the very act of reheating your leftovers was triggering a clandestine chemical transformation at the molecular level? A transformation that, over time, could be dismantling your health from the inside out. The numbers tell a story that most public health officials are still hesitant to whisper. 1 in 6. That is the current global proportion of cancer cases that researchers now directly associate with dietary factors. This includes not just what we eat, but how we store it, how we treat it, and most importantly, how we reheat it. According to the latest data published in the journal CA, a leading cancer journal for clinicians, poor dietary habits have officially climbed to the position of the second leading modifiable risk factor for cancer worldwide. It sits just behind tobacco use and is rapidly closing the gap. Yet despite this alarming climb, almost no one is discussing the silent, microscopic warfare happening inside your food. When you apply heat to a meal for a second time, whether it is in a microwave, on a stovetop, or in an air fryer, you aren't just warming up molecules. You are often initiating irreversible chemical reactions. These reactions are silent. They do not emit a foul odor. They do not change the texture in a way that warns your palate. But they are happening. They happen in your kitchen, they happen in your food, and ultimately, they happen inside your body. My name is Dr. Ethan Cole. I have spent more than 15 years immersed in the world of nutritional biochemistry and preventive oncology. My career has been dedicated to understanding the bridge between food science and the development of malignant diseases. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on 4 specific food categories that are likely in your refrigerator right now. These are foods that undergo documented, scientifically verified transformations when they are reheated. Transformations that carry a measurable, cumulative cancer risk. I want you to stay with me until the very end of this presentation, because the 4th food on this list is perhaps the most dangerous of all. It is a staple that almost every health-conscious person believes is a pillar of a clean diet. That belief, unfortunately, is a dangerous misconception that could be costing you years of your life. This is not about an occasional upset stomach. This is not about the temporary discomfort of food poisoning. We are discussing the slow, systemic buildup of carcinogenic compounds within your tissues. Cancer rarely strikes like lightning. It is more like a slow-moving tide. It is a gradual process built upon the accumulation of free radicals, advanced glycation end products, and nitrosamines. These are the building blocks of cellular decay, and they often enter your system not through industrial pollution, but through your own cookware. The World Health Organization has already categorized several compounds formed during the reheating of certain foods as Group 1 or Group 2A carcinogens. To be clear, Group 1 means there is conclusive evidence that the substance causes cancer in humans. Group 2A means it is a probable carcinogen. These are not academic theories or laboratory guesses. These are documented chemical realities. By the time we finish today, you will possess a new lens through which to view your kitchen. You will understand that the choices you make with your leftovers are just as critical as the choices you make at the grocery store. Before we dive into the specific foods, it is vital that you understand the foundation of this information. In an era where health misinformation spreads faster than a virus, you deserve to know the source of your advice. My journey began in internal medicine, but it was my advanced fellowship in nutritional biochemistry that changed the way I viewed the human body. For the last 15 years, my research has focused specifically on the molecular architecture of macronutrients. I have studied how heat exposure, oxygen contact during storage, and the secondary application of thermal energy alter the very DNA of our food. For this video, I have synthesized hundreds of peer-reviewed studies from the most prestigious archives in science, including Food Chemistry, the Lancet Oncology, and the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. I am not here to sell you a miracle cure or a bottle of supplements. I am here because I believe that the most powerful tool in preventive medicine is not a pill, but precise, actionable knowledge. To understand why reheating is so complex, we have to look at food through the eyes of a chemist. When you cook food for the first time, you are performing a controlled chemical reaction. Proteins unfold, a process we call denaturation. Starches absorb water and swell, known as gelatinization. Fats break down into smaller droplets. When done correctly, these changes make food digestible and nutritious. However, the trouble begins during the resting phase, the time the food spends in your refrigerator. During this period, the food is exposed to oxygen and lingering bacteria. When you take that food out and apply heat for a second time, you aren't just repeating the first reaction, you are starting an entirely new and more volatile one. There are three primary mechanisms of danger that I want you to burn into your memory: oxidation, the malfunction of the Maillard reaction, and nitrite conversion. First, let's talk about oxidation. Imagine a piece of metal left out in the rain. It rusts. A similar process happens to the fats and proteins in your food during storage. They become chemically unstable. When you reheat these pre-rusted molecules, they shatter into toxic byproducts known as lipid peroxides and malondialdehyde. These are high-velocity molecules that, once inside your body, act like microscopic shrapnel, capable of tearing into your cellular membranes and damaging your DNA. Second, we have the Maillard reaction gone wrong. You know this reaction as the delicious browning on a crust of bread or a seared steak. It is a dance between sugars and proteins. But when you subject food to multiple rounds of high heat, this reaction creates something far more sinister: advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. As the name suggests, these compounds accelerate the aging of your cells. They trigger chronic inflammation, which is the fertile soil in which cancer cells love to grow. Third, and perhaps most terrifying, is nitrite conversion. Many vegetables are naturally high in nitrates, which are usually heart-healthy. However, during storage, specific bacteria convert these nitrates into nitrites. When you reheat those vegetables, those nitrites can transform into nitrosamines. The scientific community recognizes nitrosamines as some of the most potent carcinogens in existence. They are the primary reason why processed meats are linked to colon cancer, and yet we are inadvertently creating them in our own kitchens by reheating the wrong vegetables. Oxidation, advanced glycation, nitrosamine formation. These are the three silent killers. As we move through our list of 4 foods, you will see these 3 mechanisms appearing again and again. You will see how a simple habit of convenience can bypass your body's natural defenses and plant the seeds of long-term illness. Now that you understand the how, let us look at the what. Let us examine the first staple food that is currently sitting in the kitchens of billions of people, quietly waiting to be reheated. Let us begin with the most consumed staple food on the planet: rice. Whether it is basmati, jasmine, or long-grain white rice, this humble grain supports the caloric needs of over 3 billion people. It is the ultimate convenience food, often cooked in large batches and kept in the refrigerator for days. But rice carries a biological secret, a sleeper cell that survives the initial cooking process and thrives during the reheating cycle. Most people believe that boiling water is the ultimate sterilization. While it is true that high temperatures kill most active bacteria, they do not affect the spores of a specific pathogen known as Bacillus cereus. These spores are naturally present in the soil where rice is grown and are incredibly resilient. When you cook your rice the first time, the heat kills the living bacteria, but the spores remain dormant. The real danger begins the moment you take that rice off the stove. As the rice cools, these spores wake up. If rice is left at room temperature or even stored in a large, deep container in the fridge where the core temperature stays warm for several hours, these bacteria begin to multiply rapidly. During this growth phase, they produce a specific toxin called cereulide. Here is the part that should deeply concern you. Cereulide is heat stable. This means that when you take that leftover rice out the next day and microwave it until it is steaming, you are killing the bacteria, but you are leaving the toxins completely intact. These toxins act like a chemical poison that targets the mitochondria, the engines of your cells. When your mitochondria are repeatedly exposed to these toxins, they begin to malfunction. In the world of oncology, we know that mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the earliest, quote, biological triggers for malignant cellular transformation. It is the process by which a healthy, functioning cell loses its instruction manual and begins to grow uncontrollably. But the risk of reheating rice extends beyond bacterial toxins. There is also the issue of acrylamide. When starchy foods are subjected to repeated heat, the natural sugars react with an amino acid called asparagine. This creates acrylamide, a compound that the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified as a Group 2A probable carcinogen. So how do we handle this staple safely? The solution is speed. If you must store rice, you need to bring its temperature down as fast as possible. Spread it out on a large, flat tray immediately after cooking to increase the surface area. Put it in the refrigerator within 1 hour. Most importantly, consume it within 24 hours and never, under any circumstances, reheat it more than once. If you find yourself with rice that has been sitting for 2 or 3 days, do not trust the microwave to make it safe. The damage is already done. If rice is the world's favorite starch, then chicken is undoubtedly the world's favorite lean protein. It is the cornerstone of meal prep culture. Millions of health-conscious individuals spend their Sundays grilling or roasting large quantities of chicken to be reheated for lunch throughout the week. They believe they are making the ultimate healthy choice. Unfortunately, they are unknowingly participating in a process of protein mutation. When animal muscle tissue is cooked, the proteins undergo a structural change. When you apply high heat to that same tissue for a second time, you trigger a process called protein oxidation. This isn't just about the meat becoming dry or tough. It is about the formation of highly reactive molecules called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. In the laboratory, HCAs are used to study how cancer begins. They are known as genotoxic agents, meaning they have the specific ability to bind directly to your DNA. Once they latch onto your genetic code, they can cause misprints or mutations during cell division. Specifically, they tend to target tumor suppressor genes, the very genes responsible for preventing cancer from taking hold. The evidence is not just theoretical. A landmark study published in the journal Carcinogenesis demonstrated a clear, statistically significant link between the frequent consumption of reheated poultry and an increased risk of colorectal cancer. But the news gets worse for the pancreas. Research from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that the metabolic byproducts of reheated processed proteins were associated with a higher incidence of pancreatic cancer. This is particularly chilling when you consider that pancreatic cancer remains one of the most aggressive and difficult to treat malignancies, with a 5-year survival rate of barely 11%. The second heat also accelerates lipid peroxidation. Chicken contains fats that, once cooked and stored, become sensitized to oxygen. Reheating these fats turns them into malondialdehyde, a compound that creates massive oxidative stress in the lining of your digestive tract. If you want to enjoy your leftover chicken, the safest path is to eat it cold. Slice it into a salad or a wrap. By avoiding that second blast of high heat, you prevent the further synthesis of HCAs and keep the proteins in a more stable state. If you absolutely must have a warm meal, use a very low temperature and a gentle heating method. Never nuke your chicken in the microwave until it pops and sizzles. That sound is the sound of chemical bonds breaking and the formation of compounds your body was never meant to process. Now we move to a food that represents a tragic irony in nutritional science: spinach and other nitrate-rich leafy greens. For decades, we have been told, rightly so, that spinach is a superfood. It is packed with iron, magnesium, and folate. It is a staple of the anti-cancer diet. However, when it comes to leftovers, this superfood can undergo one of the most dangerous chemical pivots in the culinary world. The issue lies in nitrates. Naturally occurring nitrates in fresh vegetables are wonderful for your heart. They help dilate blood vessels and lower blood pressure. But nitrates are chemically unstable. When you cook spinach and then store it in the refrigerator, the naturally occurring bacteria on the leaves begin a silent conversion process. They transform those healthy nitrates into nitrites. Nitrites on their own are problematic, but the real danger occurs when heat is reapplied. When you reheat that day-old spinach, the nitrites can react with amino acids to form nitrosamines. If that word sounds familiar, it is because nitrosamines are the same carcinogenic compounds found in tobacco smoke and processed deli meats like bacon and salami. In 2015, the World Health Organization made headlines by classifying processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen, primarily because of these compounds. By reheating your spinach, you are essentially turning a fresh vegetable into a source of the same toxins found in highly processed meat. Nitrosamines are potent. In animal studies, they have been shown to induce organ damage and DNA mutations at remarkably low doses. In humans, high exposure to these compounds is consistently linked to cancers of the stomach, the esophagus, and the colon. The European Food Safety Authority has even issued formal warnings regarding the dietary exposure to nitrites from vegetables, specifically highlighting the risk of reheating them after storage. The chemical flip from nitrate to nitrosamine is accelerated by the fluctuating temperatures of a typical home refrigerator and the concentrated heat of a microwave. To protect yourself, the rule is simple: spinach should be eaten fresh or consumed immediately after the first cooking. If you have leftovers, do not save them with the intention of reheating them for tomorrow's dinner. Either eat them cold within a few hours or, better yet, only cook what you intend to eat in a single sitting. The betrayal of the healthy leftover is one of the most difficult concepts for my patients to accept, but the molecular evidence is undeniable. We are taking the very antioxidants that are supposed to protect us and, through the simple act of reheating, transforming them into the very pro-oxidants that trigger disease. But as concerning as rice, chicken, and spinach are, they pale in comparison to our fourth and final food. This is the food that most people believe is the ultimate breakfast, yet its reaction to heat is perhaps the most genotoxic of them all. We have reached the fourth food on our list, and for many of you, this will be the most difficult to hear. We are talking about eggs. By almost every nutritional metric, eggs are a biological masterpiece. They contain all 9 essential amino acids. They are a primary source of choline, which is vital for the structural integrity of your brain cells. They provide lutein and zeaxanthin, the antioxidants that act as internal sunglasses for your eyes. For decades, the medical community has championed eggs as the perfect protein. However, eggs contain a specific vulnerability that surfaces the moment they are cooked, stored, and reheated. That vulnerability is the fat content within the yolk. Approximately 13% of an egg is fat, and that fat is packed with cholesterol. When you cook an egg for the first time, you are exposing that cholesterol to heat and oxygen. This causes a manageable level of initial oxidation. But when a cooked egg is placed in a refrigerator and then subjected to high-temperature reheating, especially in a microwave, a secondary, much more aggressive reaction occurs. This process produces compounds known as oxysterols. Over the last decade, oxysterols have become a major focus in the field of molecular oncology. These are oxidized forms of cholesterol that do not exist in fresh food. They are created by the degradation of nutrients. A comprehensive review published in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology concluded that oxysterols are not just bad for your arteries, they are cytotoxic and genotoxic. Let us pause on that word, genotoxic. It is a term we use to describe a substance that is directly toxic to the genetic material within your cells. Genotoxic compounds have the ability to cause DNA strand breaks. Imagine your DNA as a complex set of blueprints. Oxysterols act like a corrosive acid that eats away at those blueprints. When your cells try to repair the damage, they often make mistakes. These mistakes are the mutations that initiate the slow crawl toward cancer. But the danger of reheated eggs does not stop at DNA damage. When you reheat egg proteins, particularly scrambled eggs or omelets, you cause a secondary denaturation. This creates abnormal cross-links between amino acid chains. These mutated proteins are incredibly difficult for your digestive enzymes to break down. As they sit in your digestive tract, they undergo further degradation, releasing sulfur-containing byproducts like hydrogen sulfide. Persistent oxidative stress in the intestinal lining is a primary driver of colorectal cancer, which currently claims nearly 1 million lives every year. By reheating eggs, you are essentially introducing a pro-inflammatory bomb into your gastrointestinal system. The sulfur-containing amino acids, cysteine and methionine, which are normally beneficial, can degrade into compounds that irritate the delicate mucosal lining of your gut. If you are someone who prepares a large batch of scrambled eggs on Sunday to eat throughout the week, I urge you to reconsider. If you must prepare eggs in advance, hard-boil them, keep them in their shells, and store them in the coldest part of your refrigerator. When it is time to eat, consume them cold. The moment you decide to microwave that egg, you are choosing convenience over the integrity of your cellular DNA. To truly understand why these four foods, rice, chicken, spinach, and eggs, become so hazardous, we have to look at the tool most of us use to reheat them, the microwave oven. To understand the microwave is to understand a difference between warming food and altering food. A traditional oven heats food through convection. The air around the food is heated, and that heat slowly moves from the outside in. A microwave works through a process called dielectric heating. It sends electromagnetic waves at a frequency of 2.45 gigahertz through your food. These waves target water molecules, causing them to vibrate at a rate of 2.45 billion times per second. This molecular friction creates heat, but it does so in a chaotic and uneven way. This creates what we call hotspots. In a microwave, certain areas of your food can reach temperatures far exceeding the boiling point of water, while other areas remain cold. In those localized hotspots, the chemical reactions we have discussed, the formation of HCAs in chicken, the synthesis of nitrosamines in spinach, and the creation of oxysterols in eggs, happen at an accelerated, almost explosive rate. Furthermore, the vibration caused by the microwave can physically tear apart the delicate structures of vitamins and antioxidants. Research has shown that microwaving certain vegetables can destroy up to 97% of their antioxidant content. When you destroy the antioxidants but leave the nitrates and fats behind, you are removing the very chemical shields that your body needs to neutralize carcinogens. We also have to consider the containers we use. When you reheat these foods in plastic containers, even those labeled as microwave safe, the high-frequency waves and the heat from the food can cause plasticizers like bisphenol A and phthalates to leach into your meal. These chemicals are known endocrine disruptors and have been linked to hormone-dependent cancers such as breast and prostate cancer. When these synthetic chemicals mix with the lipid peroxides and nitrosamines we have already discussed, you are consuming a carcinogenic cocktail that your liver was never designed to filter. The microwave age has prioritized speed over safety. We have traded the slow, stable chemistry of traditional cooking for a high-velocity friction that leaves our food chemically scarred. As we move into the final part of this presentation, I'm going to show you how to break this cycle and implement a protocol that protects your family while still respecting the realities of a busy life. I realized early in my career that simply telling people what is dangerous is not enough. We live in a fast-paced world, and leftovers are a necessity for many. My goal is not to make you afraid of your kitchen, but to make you the master of it. This is what I call the Cole Protocol, a set of 5 evidence-based rules for handling food that will drastically reduce your exposure to the toxins we have discussed today. Rule number 1, the 1-hour window. The life of a leftover is determined in the first 60 minutes after it leaves the heat. For rice and proteins, you must bring the temperature down as quickly as possible. Do not leave a large pot of rice on the counter to cool. Spread it thin, increase the surface area, and get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour. This stops the awakening of bacterial spores and slows the initial phase of oxidation. Rule number 2, the cold consumption list. There are certain foods that should simply never meet a microwave for a second time. This list includes spinach, celery, beets, and eggs. If you have leftovers of these foods, eat them cold. Cold spinach in a salad is a nutrient powerhouse. A cold, hard-boiled egg is a perfect snack. By removing the second heating cycle, you keep the nitrates and cholesterol in their stable, non-toxic forms. Rule number 3, the thermal buffer. If you must reheat chicken or other proteins, abandon the microwave. Use a stovetop or a low-temperature oven. Add a thermal buffer, a small amount of water or healthy broth. This helps distribute the heat more evenly and prevents the formation of localized hotspots where HCAs and lipid peroxides are most likely to form. Never heat your leftovers beyond 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Using a simple food thermometer can be one of the most effective cancer prevention tools in your home. Rule number 4, the 1 reheat limit. Every time you heat and cool food, the chemical degradation compounds. The levels of malondialdehyde and AGEs double or triple with each cycle. You should cook once and reheat once. If there are still leftovers after that second meal, they must be discarded. The cost of a wasted portion of rice is nothing compared to the long-term cost of cellular mutation. Rule number 5, portion planning. The most effective way to stay safe is to produce fewer leftovers. We have become a culture of bulk cooking, but for the foods on our list today, fresh is always superior. Take 30 seconds before you cook to measure your portions. I want you to think about the people you love. Think about your parents, your children, or your friends who rely on meal prepping to get through a busy work week. They are making these choices because they want to be healthy. They are eating chicken and spinach because they believe they are doing the right thing. But they don't know about the second heat. They don't know about the silent molecular flip. You have the power to change that. By sharing this information, you aren't just sharing a video, you are sharing a shield. You are giving someone the opportunity to stop a process of DNA damage that they didn't even know was happening. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 4 foods was the biggest surprise? For many, it is the eggs. For others, the hidden danger in their rice. Your feedback helps me understand which areas of nutritional biochemistry we should explore next. Finally, a necessary word of caution. The information I have shared today is for educational purposes. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. Every individual has unique health needs. If you have a pre-existing condition or specific dietary requirements, please consult with your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian before making radical changes. Science is a living, breathing field, and as new research emerges, our recommendations will continue to evolve. My mission is to ensure that the bridge between the laboratory and your dinner table is clear and well-traveled. You deserve to know what is happening inside your body. You deserve to have the evidence. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And most importantly, thank you for taking responsibility for your health. I am Dr. Ethan Cole, and I will see you in the next deep dive.